The best part of my job is like engaging with the community, getting to know different walks of life, different lifestyles from different people, driving customers from point A to point B safely and efficiently, and letting them see this pretty face, you know. You're the captain of the ship. I kind of set the tone of the bus, you know, just greeting the passengers, good morning, good evening, good night, you know. Greeting them kind of makes them feel welcome on the bus. The free fares has helped out tremendously, especially with COVID. It's a hard time. Everybody's facing like hardships or loss of jobs. So it helps them out, you know, they probably need to go to a job or a job interview. So you're helping them out get into that job interview. Somebody needs to go to a doctor appointment because they battling COVID. You're helping them get to their appointments, just getting around the city and going about their daily lives. The electric bus is more quieter than a fossil fuel. With a fossil fuel, you have the possibility of intaking fumes. It's more cleaner because it's electric, obviously, so which is better for the environment, you know, less pollution. Especially what's going on now in the world with global warming and changes of the weather, is we trying to help contribute giving back to the environment, right? Every single customer always, thank you, you know, as they're leaving the bus, they make sure they come from the back of the bus to the front of the bus just to tell me, thank you. You know, you did a good job. Oh, that makes me feel very wonderful.
We're here today to shout out from the mountaintops that workers and riders from all neighborhoods and walks of life should have safe, affordable, and reliable means of transportation without stress of struggle.
4 years ago, on February 4th, Rosa Parks' birthday, in partnership with the Amalgamated Transit Union, we launched Transit Equity Day to declare transit equity as a civil right.
During the pandemic, transit workers have been a lifeline to our communities and frontline workers who must get to their life-saving jobs.
Losing the battle for public transit is losing the war for the working class.
We have always been essential.
For low-income communities and communities of color, owning a car is often out of reach. And without a car, finding job opportunities is a struggle. It doesn't have to be this way.
From the elderly to the young, to the middle, to the disabled. Make it fair for everyone.
I am totally blind from birth with multiple other disabilities. Transit-dependent riders, youth, elders, people with disabilities have no choice but to ride.
The lack of quality private transit services significantly hinders the ability of people with disabilities to live full lives.
This is an equity issue in terms of making sure we have the transit system that actually serves not just the well-to-do, but every working person and every poor person.
It was challenging for me to wake up early every day and try my best to not miss the bus, but I had so much tolerance, not because I was playing around, but because of public transportation.
Make no mistake, transit and postal service both serve to preserve and foster our democracy.
Public officials need to be listening to this, and they need to do something about this.
We need to prioritize a clean economy, which includes transportation.
There is only about a 10-year window left to reduce emissions in order to avoid cataclysmic climate change.
Before being hired by BYD, I drove long-haul truck. At BYD, I'm able to make electric buses. They don't put out toxic fumes. Clean energy versus diesel energy. Big difference, makes the heart feel good.
We can fund transit and we can fund clean energy. We must fund them both.
Because the public counts on it and they need it.
Hello and welcome to Transit Equity Day 2024. My name is Bakari Height and I'm the Transit Equity Organizer with the Labor Network for Sustainability. We thank those of you who are coming back for our 7th year of hosting Transit Equity Day Live. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. Transit Equity Day is our annual day of action where we showcase the actions of transit organizers, sustainability groups, labor unions in their pursuit of instilling transit equity and also declaring transit equity as a civil right. We do this on Rosa Parks' birthday every February 4th to honor the civil rights leader as she stood up in the face of segregation. However, this year, we celebrate on Monday at the request of many of our loyal Transit Equity Network members due to the many transit agencies not having sufficient enough service or no service at all on Sundays. This inconvenience costs many transit riders time and sometimes money, given that they cannot reach their jobs, entertainment options, or medical appointments. That's why our theme this year is Transit Equity 2024, a service and sustainability solution. We have a two-pronged approach for this theme. For the past 60 years since Rosa Parks refused to move from her seat, many of our transit systems still do not provide adequate enough service for people to comfortably move around due to the continued operator shortage, budget cuts, and political backlashes for expansion. However, we thank those of our representatives like Georgia Congressman Hank Johnson for ensuring that the federal government not only earmarks funding to build transit, but also to operate transit. The Transit Equity Network sat down with Congressman Johnson to discuss the details of the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act, which will be reintroduced this legislative session. Here's a snippet of that conversation.
That is why I introduced the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act. This bill would create a new $20 billion formula grant program annually that would be available to all transit agencies, rural and urban. And its purpose would be to increase service frequency so that people don't have to wait so long for the bus or the train. It would provide additional hours of service so that those who don't work 9 to 5 can still get to their jobs and home again to their loved ones. And actually what I mean is that the bill would make grants available to those who are looking to provide additional hours of service so that people who don't work 9 to 5 can get to their jobs. And also the legislation would provide grants to for those looking to add new frequent service in their communities. Today, the overwhelming majority of federal transit funds are for capital investments to buy new buses or construct new rail lines, while small city and rural services can currently use their existing capital grants to support operating expenses. No transit agency should have to choose between operating good service and buying new or additional buses or train cars. Even the newest electric bus will not meet the climate crisis or meet the economic and mobility needs of our communities if it only comes once an hour. Imagine that, waiting an entire hour for the next bus in the sweltering summer, late to school or work, and being anxious about your day. My bill will fund more and more frequent service with a focus on disadvantaged communities and communities of persistent poverty. The funds provided in the bill will be in addition to state, federal, and other sources. And this means that agencies can only use funds from this bill to expand service, not to run their existing service. And no state or locality can reduce funding to a transit agency because of this new federal funding. The nonprofit Transit Center found that a $20 billion federal investment in transit operations could mean a 40% gain in service for the Atlanta region. This could vastly improve access to transit when it arrives at least every 15 minutes, all day, 7 days a week. In some parts of the city, that would increase the number of jobs reachable within 30 minutes on transit by a factor of 8. Think about that. More jobs due to greater transit creates a compounding impact and greater opportunities all around. The Transit Center went on to say that such a federal program could yield similar benefits across the country and help lower income families by also reducing racial inequality and greenhouse gases. The Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act creates that program. And we have a long way to go before this bill becomes law. This week,
This will be arguably one of the most important boosts to public transit in the United States, and we certainly thank Congressman Hank Johnson for his work. If you'd like to learn more about the Stronger Communities Through Better Transit Act, please go to our website at www.labor4sustainability.org/transit equity 2024. The link to that, as well as all the other links from all of our presenters, will be in the chat. We have an amazing program for you today, and if you'd like to interact with us throughout the live stream, please use the hashtag Transit Equity Day on all social media platforms, and we may just read your comments live on air. Also, please like, comment, and subscribe to the Labor Network for Sustainability and the Transit Equity Network's YouTube channels. Also, be sure to share this amongst your networks. We want to continue this conversation going, and we've seen comments talking about what can we as the riders do to improve mass transit. Share this amongst your networks. Please let everyone know about this as possible so that we can build this labor and climate movement that Labor Network for Sustainability has been charged to do. Our first guest is no stranger to the Transit Equity Network, and she will be bringing great news from the great state of Indiana. Joining us now is Sheila Curry Campbell. Sheila is a native of Fort Wayne and very active in the community, serving as the 1st District County Councilwoman with the responsibility of establishing an annual budget for county government. She is a member of Centering Equity in the Sustainable Building Sector Leadership Team, and most recently, Sheila served as the treasurer and past president NAACP Fort Wayne and Allen County branch before becoming president. Sheila served on many committees in leadership roles, like the Environmental Justice Chair, and she's bringing a green team with her from a church at Pilgrim Baptist Church. Sheila, thank you for joining us again.
Good morning. I am the past 1st District County Council, so.
Absolutely. So tell us about your good news in Indiana.
Oh my goodness, we have a lot going on here in Indiana. I don't know if you want the good, bad, or ugly. I'll start with the ugly. We have some legislation. We have one Republican that's actually trying to stop our free reduced fare on Election Day. That would be something that we definitely don't want to see happen. That's Senate Bill number 187. We have some exciting news with our state of Indiana, IndyGo. They had free bus fare for Transit Equity Day, so we were excited about that. We also have some local activity here in Fort Wayne, Allen County in particular. The Fort Wayne Passenger Train Project. We've talked about that during our monthly meetings. There's been $500 as a federal funding allocation. Thanks to the folks, Senator Sherrod Brown, he's out of Ohio, and the Midwest Connection Passenger Rail Corridor. This would be a connection from Chicago to Pittsburgh with a stop including in Fort Wayne and Warsaw. So this funding is a step toward us realizing our goal of restoring our service here, our train service here in Northern Indiana. We also celebrated Rosa Parks' 111th birthday. And so we want to recognize the efforts here in Fort Wayne. John Metzinger is our CEO of CityLink. And so in 2022, he signed on to the American Public Transportation Association. This was a racial equity pledge. And so he gave us that 2-year report. And I think we have a short clip of that also. I want to give a shout out to our mayor, Mayor Tom Henry, along with 6th District Councilwoman Sharon Tucker, who stepped into the shoes of Councilman Glenn Hines after 20 plus years. One of the visions of Glenn was to see a bus wrap. And so we're happy to announce that did take place. There was funding by Seed. We had a local artist, Theophilus Smith III, and he did that portrayal of our CityLink bus. And so that was displayed also on this past Friday. So we're excited here. We have a lot going on, and I don't know if we got enough time to show everything, but if you could just share with the folks, with John Metzinger, his response on that 2-year pilot program. And I think later we're going to share an interview that I had with Jeff Paddock. Jeff Paddock is 5th District County Council, and he spoke more about what we're doing with the Midwest Connection Passenger Rail Corridor and that $500,000 grant.
Absolutely. Let's go to the clip now.
Good morning. Welcome. We're so grateful that you made the time to be with us today and celebrate this very special occasion. I want to take a brief moment to give a shout out to the CityLink staff. So if you can just I'd also like to take the time to recognize the board members who are here today. So if you can just raise your hands, let us recognize you. And also, of course, those elected officials who are here today. I don't want to miss anyone, so I'm not going to name names, but please just, if you can raise your hand and be appreciated. Well, as Councilwoman Tucker was just saying, this day was initiated by Rosa Parks, who is known as the mother of the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks started a revolution that has created a ripple effect, ever-expanding, inclusive mobility across our nation for Black Americans and for all others who are oppressed or left out. 2 years ago, CityLink signed onto the American Public Transportation Association's Racial Equity Commitment Pledge. This was a 2-year pilot program which provided a roadmap for advancing racial equity within the organization of CityLink as part of our broader commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm proud to say that CityLink has made amazing progress toward these goals of increasing diversity in our workforce. Today, 65% of our workforce is African American, Black, Hispanic, or Brown. We think that that's a strong reflection of our community. We have probably one of the most diverse workforces in all of the city of Fort Wayne. In 2021, CityLink had only 3 African Americans in leadership roles. Today, our administration has 8 Black and Brown leaders, 5 of whom are women. We also have a diverse board of directors, which includes people with disabilities, people of color, and 5 out of 7 of whom are women. We still have much more to do. This year, CityLink is forming an employee advisory group within our team to guide action plans that will champion further diversity and inclusion efforts. Transit equity is a core value of CityLink. It represents how we approach our service to the community. CityLink's mission, we have a new mission statement. Our new mission statement is linking people to life. This reflects how we connect our community to life's opportunities through empowering human mobility. Rosa Parks' quiet decision to remain in her seat, perhaps inspired by a moment of divine clarity about her own worth and human dignity, shows all of us what's possible when transit riders realize that equitable transportation is their right and their legacy too. This is all thanks to Rosa Parks. Transit Equity Day reminds us that we never know when a single moment of action will become the moment for impactful change. So, as a community, let's create that moment together to advance transit equity and public transportation in our area. Thank you very much for being here today.
Sheila, this is exciting, and especially to get the buy-in of the agency on. So, and especially with your group being a faith-based group, and kind of the importance of that. My last question is, what's your motivation of bringing transit equity to a faith-based group?
Well, we all play a role in this, and it's really important that we get back to the church. Getting the church involved in the community, our advocacy work is so important. it's important for us to make sure that we're at the table. We constantly say that you have to be at the table to make the decisions. I think it's important that Pilgrim play a leadership role. We've been in this community for 105 years. Civil rights is what we were based on. So it's very important that the faith-based community is at the table.
Absolutely. And we've put your information in the chat to get involved. Definitely pgcgreenteam.org if you want to get involved with everything. Sheila Curry Campbell, thank you so much for joining with us today.
Thank you, and have a great day.
Wonderful. Yes, and we certainly thank everyone in Fort Wayne for that. We've had many wonderful members come through, and as well as with different topics as well. And one of the things that we've done within this year, in the past year, for the Transit Equity Network is explore other parts of transportation that most people wouldn't even think of transit, like school buses. We held a panel back in October for school bus safety, and it was a really amazing panel with some amazing guests that gave us a lot of what's going on within our school buses. Children are and can be our next transit riders, but we also have to treat them with dignity and respect as well. Let's go to a clip of that video.
Bigger cities that are presenting today. So as Bakari mentioned, we're Neighbors for Buses. We advocate for safe transportation for children to and from school. We started our advocacy efforts in April when we found out that approximately 3,500 children were cut from school bus service in Howard County without a public hearing. And I appreciate what Sarah said when she was talking about PIST NYC efforts, just how elected officials are often hiding behind the excuse of it is difficult to get drivers right now, rather than trying to fix the problem and recruit and find ways to make school bus service, being a school bus driver, more attractive. A lot of elected officials are simply hiding behind the excuse of there are insufficient drivers. So for a variety of reasons, our school district decided to just cut service without having any sort of broad conversation with citizens that they represent. And so families were shocked. Most people did not know that they were affected by these cuts. And by the time they were even released to the public as to who would and would not have bus service, it was too late for many families to make adjustments for this incoming school year. So as of this school year, less children have school bus service, and that started in September. So a little bit of background. I know many may not know where Howard County is. We're a lovely county that's situated about halfway between Baltimore City, so that's highlighted with a black arrow, that boxed area in the southern portion of Baltimore County, that's Baltimore, and then in red is Howard County, and then a little further south, not part of Maryland, is Washington, D.C., where some families live in Howard County and have one parent might travel to Baltimore, one parent might travel to DC. We also have people who work locally in Howard County. We're the sixth largest county in population in Maryland, of about 335,000 people. But what's interesting is that we do have the highest average property tax payments in the state based on the property tax rate, and then the high cost of living and high property values in Howard County. And so deficiency of funds seems like a poor excuse to cut school bus service when there is quite a bit of income coming into the county. Columbia, Maryland was developed in central Howard County. That's where most of our schools are located. In the 1960s, it was designed specifically to be a mixed income, ethnically diverse, mixed community. There's lots of parks and recreational facilities. And I did want to highlight, I'll point this out later in the talk, is that there are lovely public trails that go through the woods, and these are paved paths, and there are some concerns related to those paved paths as they relate to cutting school bus service. So the school system serves about 57,000 students in 77 schools, and we really don't have public transit the way other larger communities might have. We do have some bus service, public bus service through the Regional Transportation Authority, but most of those do not take children to school, and bus stops are not convenient to schools for the most part. Except where required by special education law, Maryland law does not protect school bus rights in Maryland. So we are a state that has no law that requires any district to have school bus service. So all counties in Maryland could stop offering all school bus service, and that would be okay per Maryland law. All counties have some school bus service, but it is not a protected right in Maryland. Students are required to receive an education, but students do not necessarily have to have access to a school bus, even if they live very far away from school. So our advocacy efforts really are fixed on the point that school buses are the safest way to get children to and from school. That has been reported for years by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And therefore, any cuts to school bus service are inherently cutting child safety. And so if a district, if a county decides they want to cut service, it seems like that should be a very huge conversation in the community. Families rely on school bus service, and to suddenly cut it can create a lot of safety concerns for families who lose service. So our first concern with the way school buses were cut in our county was that our county is a county that gives children service, school bus service, even if they're close to school, if there's not a safe physical route to school. But when the cuts were made, they were looking at maps and speed limits, and they had never physically gone in person to the new areas that school buses were cut from. And so this is an example from a community. I did try to show there's a blind hill where as you drive down, you cannot see oncoming traffic, and there's no sidewalks here. Sidewalks are not a requirement in Maryland to, or in our district in order to be a walker to school. But in this area, you really
that was Neighbors for Buses on one of our mini groups that were on that call. And we also sat down with Sarah Catalinato from PIS New York City, also another advocacy group that advocates for school bus transportation in New York City. And we had a wonderful conversation about their updates, and especially since they were also on Transit Equity Day last year, and also how they banded with their local transit union to make some change there. Let's go there now. So as part of our Transit Equity Network, we wanted to share some updates with a lot of folks. And if you're in the Transit Equity Network, my guest, no stranger, Sarah Catalinato from PIS New York City, who we also hosted a school bus safety panel back in October. So if you haven't watched it, please go to our Transit Equity Network YouTube channel and watch it. But Sarah, thanks. It's good to see you again.
It's great. Yeah. Transit equity seems to be really strong this year. I'm seeing a lot about it online, and celebrating Mrs. Rosa Parks.
Absolutely. Now, tell us, since we did Transit Equity Day last year, as well as with the school bus panel, what updates have been happening in New York City as far as school bus transportation?
Okay. Well, I mean, the problems are sort of coming out of hiding now, to the point that a broader segment of the population is aware, and not just the most affected, riders and families and workers and school staff. One thing that did happen was that the union that represents a majority of our school bus workers here almost went on strike. So there was a lot of attention, around the news, and the parents, more than ever before, were front and center with a lot of support of saying to the city that whatever little band-aids that they were offering that was supposed to alleviate if there wasn't, fully staffed buses, was not adequate. These ride shares, which I can get a little more into, they require the parent to get in the car with the student there and back, and then go where they have to go and come back and get the kid again and back home. And that makes it almost impossible for people to keep their regular job, So that was dismissed by the parents, and other things. We kept in very good contact with the leadership of the union, which is Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1181. And it took a long time, but they did get the companies to go along with improvements that bring them somewhat back to where they were before, the last 10 years of kind of like bad uh, deterioration of the rights and the payments and the wages and benefits. So the parents were thanked for our part in it, and that bond is, remains strong. We do still have a shortage of um, qualified folks doing the work, as with a lot of places. What what we are pushing for now is that the city, despite the fact that they do subcontract this to mostly to private bus companies, is that they got to take some responsibility to like advertise or have recruitment fairs, and make it accessible to people who might be really good at it, but they don't have that seed money to go get their licensing and their training and their certification. We saw from speaking with folks in Boston, Massachusetts, that that was done. It was actually written into the agreement between their union, the company, and the city, and it resulted in day one of the school term in September, there was every bus route was staffed. So it can be done, you know. So we're not taking no for an answer on that.
Sorry about that. That was Sarah Catalano from PIS New York City. It was good to hear her discuss about the bond that she had with the local transit union, and being able to get a lot of those out. So definitely go and check that out. Also on the school bus panel, we had Najma Nash, the mother of a child who was unfortunately killed due to negligence for our school bus. So if you definitely like to go and take part of that change.org petition to get better equipment on these buses, we'll put the link down into the description so you can go and check that out. Another panel that we also were blessed to start last year was the Public Transformation Series. We partnered with Railroad Workers United to look and to also promote their idea of publicizing a lot of our rail. We at one point had a national public rail system, and we're since dialed back. So we had some leaders to come up and just talk about the history, where we've been, and where we can go. Let's play the clip now.
Well, I'm convinced that the biggest bulwark today that prevents us from having a robust passenger rail system is private ownership of the infrastructure of this country. We still have the biggest infrastructure, despite the fact that about half of it has been abandoned. We have 140,000 miles of track in this country. We still could front an amazing passenger rail network, but we don't. And what we saw happen after the Second World War is most rail systems in the world, if they had not already been nationalized, they were at that point, including the UK, France, most of Europe, and so forth. And then through the 50s and 60s, especially in places like Japan, we saw the first high-speed rail bullet train in 1964. There's never been a fatality. It's carried X number of billions of people. People say to me all the time, I just got back from Europe and the trains are incredible. I remember maybe 10 years ago, Spain announced that they were going to spend an astronomical figure linking all of the major urban centers of the country with high or higher speed rail. And I did the math and figured out that basically this was an astronomical amount. It would be something like the equivalent of the United States investing $50 billion a year in rail passenger service for the next 10 years proportionately. But we don't do it. And it's a huge problem when you don't own the infrastructure. The rail industry doesn't want to play ball. Having worked for Conrail, which was taken over in a big corporate merger in '99 by Norfolk Southern, I had a lot of experience, and I delayed a lot of passenger trains. And now I get delayed by freight trains in front of me. And I've been a member of the Rail Passengers Association for years, and Railroad Workers United is a dues-paying member of both RPA and the Rail Users Network. And I watch year after year, decade after decade, as these well-intended passenger train advocates beat their head against the wall. And we always come back to the question of, we don't own it. We're at the Class 1 railroad's mercy. And therefore, we don't get expanded frequency. We don't get new routes. We don't get on-time performance. We get massively delayed trains, and it simply hampers the ability to grow and expand the network. And so many of us who work for the railroad, and in particular in RWU, have come to the conclusion, we don't want to fight this fight any longer with one hand or both hands tied behind our backs. It's sad to look at the Amtrak map from the 80s or 90s, and it shrunk dramatically. If all of the routes that had actually been taken off since Amtrak came into being in 1971 still existed, we would have a fairly decent national network of passenger trains. But Amtrak is on its knees. And I think a good example of the freight industry's sabotage is in Mobile, Alabama, where there used to be a train from New Orleans to Jacksonville. The route was washed out by Hurricane Katrina. When CSX, the host railroad, rebuilt it, they said no thank you to the Sunset Limited train, which Amtrak's trying to restore since that time. Norfolk Southern and CSX put up a huge fight this past year to keep two little trains, 4 cars long, from going between Mobile and New Orleans, stating that it would completely block up their railroad. And this is nonsense. The only reason that railroad, which only is running less than 10 trains a day, would have a problem handling 2 little tiny passenger trains is because they are running 3 and 4 mile long trains. And that is no way to run a railroad efficiently. It's completely incompatible with scheduled operations, and particularly incompatible with passenger train operations.
I was Ron Kamiko from Workers United. And we thank everyone so much for tuning into that. If you'd like to go back and watch the remainder of that video, please go to our Transit Equity Network YouTube channel, and you can watch the entire thing. Well, as mentioned before, we're doing this on Monday instead of Sunday at the request of a lot of our members, saying that either Sunday service is very lacking or it's non-existent at all. And actually took a trip to Philly to talk with an operator as well as an organizer to really discuss that and also get into the weeds of something that's also happening to the system. Let's take a look. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Marcus McKnight, one of the co-founders of the Philly Transit Riders Union, and we're here to talk about some frequency. So, we're in Philly for Transit Equity Day. Happy Transit Equity Day to everyone. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about the frequency issues that SEPTA's been having. And especially now because today's Transit Equity Day, so it is a Sunday. So you know a lot of agencies don't really run service like that on Sunday. And we're about to give a huge lesson in that right now. So Marcus, tell us a little bit about SEPTA and a lot of the frequency issues, and especially as it relates to a lot of the funding issues that you've also had.
Okay. So this is gonna be like a 2-part series here. We're gonna start this one outside, and then we're going inside because it's a little chilly this morning. All right, so right now, right behind me, we turn the camera around, we have a SEPTA bus leaving on the Route 38 heading up towards East Falls and Manioc via West Philly, all right? And that route is about every 40 to 45 minutes on a Sunday. And this is the route that directly serves the Art Museum area and the Benjamin Franklin Parkway.
Yeah, as you can see, we're kind of in the middle of all of this. And you operate a bus over here.
I am a bus operator here in Philly. Yes, I am.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you've seen it firsthand as far as like the lack of frequent options around, and especially on days when, like today, when it's really nice out, but because it's Sunday, there's not as much frequency out for a lot of the services.
So in Philadelphia, a lot of our crosstown lines right now, and even throughout the day on Sunday, are every 30 minutes. And then your north to south lines about every 15 to 20 minutes, depending on where you are in the city. Sometimes if you're going towards center city, that's a great thing. Every 15, 20 minutes for a bus, all right, I can deal with that. Other times, if you got to get somewhere else in the city, it's a little bit more challenging. And today for Trans Equity Day, we'll have an in-depth conversation about some of those challenges.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. That was Marcus McKnight. It was good to just kind of have a good sense from an operator who also knows the system as well of just kind of these challenges. And we sat down with Marcus afterwards to also talk about the challenges of something else that they're going through, which is a bus network redesign. Now, many of your cities are probably already going through one as well, but you'll be hard pressed to find that a lot of them don't necessarily bring more service other than cut service. So I sat down with him and he explained it also from a community standpoint, as a large part of Philadelphia is largely Black and also largely low income. So a lot of the message doesn't necessarily get to a lot of folks before plans are already made. Let's take a look.
You brought up a very, very, very good point. So in Philadelphia, we're working on a project called Bus Revolution. Mm-hmm. It is a very, I'm trying to think of the word to describe it. It's a topic that it really rubs people different ways. And the transit group that did the consultants that went out to the neighborhoods and did talk to people, like you said, they didn't have enough time. There's a project timeline. They want to get this, this program started to help revolutionize public transit in Philly. But unfortunately, folks that live in a downtown area or in a gentrified area, they have a different lifestyle, a different work schedule compared to somebody that lives in an inner city neighborhood. And it's very, very important that folks understand the nuances behind that. If I have a job that I can work from home or I got flex time, if I got a job that allows me to work 9 to 5 for a long lunch or whatever, I can make it to a transit meeting. I got time after work to go to, a hearing or something and educate myself on transit issues and talk about those things because my job allows me to do that. But if I'm working a blue collar job or I'm working something that's not accessible, that's like a bus driver, like a police officer, even maybe a school teacher in certain cases, a factory worker. If I work in the restaurant industry, I'm just thinking of all these other things.
Or if you work 2 jobs.
I'm about to get to that one too. I can't make those meetings. And God forbid you're a single parent or you're low income, you're working 2 and 3 jobs. You don't have time to go to meetings. When we have these transit meetings and these transit hearings, you see, again, more organized, more wealthier, more often than not whiter groups talking about all these issues. Like, oh, this is the voice of public transit. Listen to him. Okay, so where's my buddy that's on the overnight shuttle bus or the overnight transit, going to work, getting to work at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and working 12, 13 hours a day. Or, I got one buddy, I was talking about Tasty Cake. these awesome trumpets. You know, my buddy, I have a really good friend of mine, and I'm not gonna mention him because, you know, we can't go into that. He works, he picks up extra shifts at his job. He'll go in, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock. He might get up at 9 or 10 at night. So when he gets home, he's going to bed, do what we got to do, get up and get to work the next day because he got to make that money for whatever the goals he needs to accomplish. Right. His voice ain't being heard because he's on public transit. He's on the overnight shuttle bus and the late night 33, the last subway, the streetcar or wherever. His voice isn't getting heard because he's working. But public transit is important. It's essential to him. But nobody hears what he has to say. And then, like, when you have these meetings, the consultants can't get to him because of where he's working at. And then, you know, the transit agencies aren't doing enough active outreach to reach some people. And then you have these issues when you want to have a bus revolution or change something to make it better. It's like, well, this is what the public wants. No, this is what the public that you heard from wants. Right. That's not enough. That's not a high enough percentage. That's not whatever. That's not enough people. And then you have the counter arguments. There was stuff online. There was, I don't have time to go online. I might have a time to check after my bus schedule. I got stuff to do. You have to meet me. If you're changing something to make it better for me or my community, you need to meet me and my community to have these conversations. Philadelphia is known as the city of neighborhoods. We have over 100 neighborhoods and our 137 square miles. So personally, if I was planning anything in regards to transit, guess what? I'm hitting 95% of those over 100 neighborhoods in 137 square miles. And if that means I got to go out and do outreach for 2 years to get to people and give them my phone number, give them my Twitter, give them a website, have them drop stuff off at the bus stop, the bus loop, give it to the bus stop to turn it to the district at that time. If I got to spend the money to do like the return envelopes, whatever from back in the day, I'm going to do it because that's what I'm going to do to get out to these people so they can understand, hey, public transit is here for you. It will make this the best for you. But in order for us to make this the best for you, we got to hear from you.
Absolutely.
I'll take those extra steps to make sure we can hear from these people. Too many people's voices are being heard.
That was Marcus McKnight from Philly Transit Riders Union. If you want to follow more with them and everything that's going on in Philly, definitely head to the website at phillytru.org. Before we go on to the next presentation, I wanted to read some snippets from an op-ed that was submitted to us from Caucasville, Maryland. It starts off saying, the bus to take us home was supposed to arrive at 4:20. It never came. The bus scheduled for 4:57. As of 5:10, it did not arrive either. At this point, my fellow stranded bus user and I had been standing at the stop for over an hour for a ride that would have had us home in 20 minutes to take care of our children. On the waiting for a car to arrive, she shared with me takes the bus. She did not own a car because doing so would be too expensive. Nina is willing to take the bus, but when 2 scheduled buses in a row do not show up, she has no choice but to use rideshare. Nina budgets all her expenses, including weekly bus passes, for $22 each week. She can take an unlimited number of bus rides. However, a single rideshare from work to home can cost between $12 and $20, depending on when the ride is requested. No refunds are given for buses that don't arrive, so when buses are canceled, Nina has to pay additional money to get home. Even 2 such rides can add up to more than Nina's willing to pay for 7 days worth of bus rides. As I was listening to, I remember Senator Bill Ferguson's defense of Governor Moore's 8% cut in transportation funding, quote, "We need to live within our means," unquote. But Nina does live within her means, as do many of thousands of other Maryland residents who do not own cars and must rely on public transportation. In fact, it is the Maryland Transportation Administration's poor bus reliability that forces people like Nina to spend more money than they should have to. This is something that has really plagued a lot of cities, especially with cities with bus cuts, and especially something that's really plaguing the state of Maryland with 8% bus cuts, 8% of transportation cuts, for the transportation budget. This is really telling, and especially to a lot of agencies that are facing this, but there's also a group in Maryland that's trying to brag onto the state to put more money. Paul Sturm of the Better Transit Now campaign. Paul Sturm is a lifelong transit rider and currently manages the Better Transit Now campaign in Baltimore, Maryland. He founded two and led two nonprofit organizations nationally recognized for their innovation and outcomes, managed several successful collaborations involving community institutional stakeholders, and served as a consultant to social impact organizations throughout the United States. And his graduate degrees from Harvard Kennedy School and the University of Wisconsin, following undergraduate studies at Syracuse University. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bakari. Pleasure to be with you today.
Absolutely. So we heard earlier that, state of Maryland's cutting the transportation budget huge. How does that relate to the already lack of reliability now?
Well, we've got a real problem in Baltimore, as you know, because you live here as well, right? The system. We've got a disconnected, more often than not, unreliable public transportation system that demoralizes current riders, discourages potential riders, folks who would like to use the system but choose not to because it is unreliable, and really damages not only Baltimore City, but the entire region. Baltimore is literally the only major city up and down the East Coast that is currently losing population, while all of our peer cities are gaining population. Boston, New York, Philly, DC, Atlanta, they're all gaining population, while Baltimore continues to lose population. And what's at least one fundamental difference between Baltimore and these other cities have a comprehensive, connected, largely rail-based public transportation system. Baltimore has something very different.
Absolutely. Now, with your Better Transit Now campaign, you all are focusing on the reliability. And we're about to show a graphic, and you're going to walk us through this graphic and just kind of explain it to us of what your campaign is focusing on.
Yeah, well, we have really three campaign goals, Bakari, and that's reliability, frequency, and accountability. So could you zoom in, who's ever running the tech, can they zoom in just a little bit, particularly on the left-hand side of that graphic? Okay, if not, I'll take people through it. Hopefully folks can see it. So what that graphic is showing is MTA, that's our transit system. It's actually, whoops, that's SEPTA. There we go. That's actually, MTA, Maryland Transportation Administration. So, oh, great, that's better. So the system we have in Baltimore is actually run by the state of Maryland. And what you'll see is data for the past 3 months, October through December. We haven't compiled the January data yet, but you'll see this is on-time performance for both bus and light rail, which is 90% of the system. On-time performance was under 60%. That means at least 4 out of every 10 buses and light rail trains simply did not show up on time, or in any number of cases did not show up at all. You see that one subway line did somewhat better, 79%, but that still means 1 in 5 subway trains did not show up on time. And this is simply unacceptable, as we heard from the op-ed you just read. People rely on buses, trains, and the subway to get to and from their jobs, to get students rely on transit to get to and from schools, seniors and others rely on transit to get to and from medical appointments. Others rely on transit to get to recreational and cultural opportunities. So these are real people affected in a very meaningful way when the buses and the trains they're relying on don't show up on time. I've had, and I ride the system quite a bit, and I've had people literally in tears talking about jobs they've lost because they could not get to work on time, and talk about the fear they have and the anxiety they live with every day, fearing that they're going to lose another job because they can't get to work on time. So this damages the city, the region, damages not just people trying to get to and from work, but employers, and damages our economy in so many ways. So the purpose of our campaign is to say, whereas we've got some long-term plans to make the transit system better, specifically, putting the Red Line, which was originally planned as an east-west light rail line, canceled by our previous governor, Governor Hogan, put back on the table by our current governor, Governor Moore. That's terrific, and we should know sometime this year what the mode will be, what the route will be. But best case scenario, we're looking at years down the line, maybe 5, 6, 7, probably even closer to 10 years before the Red Line is up and running. Baltimore transit riders, whether they be workers, students, people trying to get to and from medical appointments, cannot wait that long. We need better transit now, or if not literally now, as soon as possible. So that's what our campaign is all about. We're getting a tremendous amount of support from members of the Maryland legislature, local officials. We're putting a database together of riders that we're going to connect with elected officials at the right time. So tremendous momentum is with our campaign. It's the right campaign at the right time, and we really appreciate the chance to share it with your audience as part of Transit Equity Day today.
Well, we absolutely thank you for sharing it with us. And you've shown us your website, bettertransitnow.org. And of course, it's definitely going to pick up as far as people being able to interact with you all. And we absolutely love that you all are going at all angles for this. So we definitely wish you all the best of luck.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah, I was going to say, if you could put the website up. We also have an email. I don't know if you could put that up as well, but if you can't, our email address is advocate. Oh, perfect. Oh, you guys have it together. Advocate at bettertransitnow.org. So if you want to learn more about the campaign, email us and we'll get back to you. And then if you go to our website, just click on join the campaign and you can give us your name and contact information, and we'll get back to you that way as well.
Absolutely. Paul Stern from the Better Transit Now campaign. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bakari.
Wonderful. Well, in our second portion of this program, we're going to focus on the sustainability part of it. Of course, a lot of folks know that transit is probably one of the most essential parts of sustainability, and especially with decreasing our carbon footprint. But we have a lot of groups that are also trying to change the name and also include transit within that. So for our next one, we're going to go into a video that explains that. But first, I wanted to share something with you. Fun fact, well, not a fun fact. According to the American Association of People with Disabilities, of the nearly 2 million people with disabilities who never leave their homes, 560,000 never leave home because of the transportation difficulties. So that's why we're going to be hosting a panel for disability in transit. And we're going to give those voices who aren't with it to actually showcase what issues they have going on and what we can do to combat it. So we definitely invite you all to register for that webinar, which will be on Wednesday, February 7th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a lovely panel of folks from all around the country who are going to be showcasing and just kind of telling a lot of their stories and how we can mobilize to also bring people with disabilities to the table as far as transit discussions. So definitely click the link to register for that. And we're going to take a break, but we're also going to be playing a video for our next panel. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. So as part of Transit Equity Day, we're inviting folks to have new ideas on how to integrate transit into the fold, and especially as it relates to our communities and how we rethink our communities. So joining us today is Annika Lundqvist, and who is the founder of Pedestrian Space, a media advocacy platform and NGO dedicated to issues of walkability and healthy, resilient communities. She's currently a PhD student in Poland and has founded the Global Walkability Correspondence Network, an international collective of people passionate and about and committed to promoting sustainable mobility. Annika, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. A wonderful Transit Equity Day to you. I have to say, when I first learned about this, I immediately dove in and was led to your website and was just really so lit up to see that there was a whole day dedicated to Rosa Parks' legacy and to highlighting the issues of transit equity. So it's been really great. You and I have been having off the record conversations. It's been really great to get to know more about what you're doing in the landscape of advocacy.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we absolutely thank you for joining us today. It's great to bring in new ideas, and especially from around the world. And I think that's something that we really strive to is, expanding out past America and showing what else is going on in the world. But kind of to go into that, tell us how you got into this type of work, and also tell us, with you living in Poland, what experience have you had that captivated you to start this organization in this line of work?
Well, speaking of transcending beyond America, I am a U.S. American as well, and I was raised in the lands of car dependence. So I grew up extremely car dependent. Didn't think anything of it. It was just how it was. The car was sort of basically the second living room. Took 45 minutes to get everywhere. You drove to the corner grocery store, even if there was a sidewalk, because walking wasn't normative. It wasn't mainstream to walk to do your things. It was a very car dependent lifestyle. So this was about 24 years ago. I graduated from college, got my bachelor's, and went to go live in a Pacific Northwestern city where I was encountering walkable urbanism for the first time. And I'm going deep a little in my life. I'm going deep, but when I look at like the seeds of how this got started, it really goes back into those deep memories. And then even deeper than that, I grew up in the States, but would travel in the summers with my father and to Sweden, to southern Sweden, where he was from. And from the moment we got off the plane, where he's from, we were really dependent on public transit a lot during our holidays, public transit and walking. And I remember as a kid, just these memories of having the bus as just a normal daily. We were on holiday, sure, but it was easy. It wasn't like home. We just walked. We had breakfast and then walked 2 blocks to the bus stop, and bus showed up in a reasonable amount of time, and we used it to get downtown. So fast forward to 2020, and the pandemic was kicking up, and all this media about open streets and all these various programs that were responding to the various issues of the pandemic and restrictions to space and movement and creative ways to use space due to pandemic restrictions. And something just lit up in me, and I said, you know what, this walkability issue, this is what weaves together so many of my important memories, my life experience, my personal love for walking, which I think is very important to bring to advocacy, even though we're dealing with a lot of issues where people indeed do not have quality pedestrian space and infrastructure. It doesn't mean that that passion maybe isn't there. And I think it's really important to reference that passion because it connects to physical health, mental health, emotional health, when you're in a mood, like what fixes you or what heals you. For me, it's always been going for a walk, and now having lived in environments where I can do that, recognizing how it affects my quality of life. So bringing that all together in 2020, right, the pandemic was kicking up, and I just decided to start Pedestrian Space at Pedestrian Space on Instagram. Just a little old Instagram account. I thought, you know what? I'm ready to find out who's doing what in this area. Like what municipalities are even present on social media and using social media as a channel to discuss public space and urbanism and public transit. And then also myself discovering what's going on in the landscape of walkability advocacy. And it kept going, and a year later, I started the website because I realized I need more space to tinker around. And then a year after that, in early 2022, I started the Global Walkability Correspondence Network, which we're now at over 270 members across the world, across the Americas, Europe, Middle East, Asia, Oceania, Africa, because unfortunately, walkability has its issues everywhere. There is no country or society that is left untouched by issues of problems with walkability. And when I say walkability, I'm also, for me, public transit is a huge dimension of that. We need a safe, quality, affordable, clean public transit for communities, for them to really be, I believe, resilient, healthy, walkable communities. Then keep going. Finally, Pedestrian Space, I founded as an NGO this past summer. So in a nutshell, that's how we're here. And experiences I've had that captivated me. Well, I guess just like you and I are of the tribe of people who I think are mobility minded. We're the people that could, go out for a coffee and talk about transit for hours. And not everybody is like that. We all have things that make us tick. But what gets me so excited is that while a lot of people might find talking about mobility boring or public transit, it's like not something you necessarily talk about for fun. It's like what you do, or it could be what you do that's a nuisance because your community hasn't afforded really great public transit. But for those of us who are really, I think, motivated by these topics and working with them, you can see how I think we all light up when we talk about transit. And I think that is so important for this space as well, the passion that we bring to transit, because transit connects us all. We're all human, and in all of our societies, we need to move for our daily needs, and that transit really affects our quality.
That was Annika Lundqvist from Pedestrian Space. Definitely go follow that because it was wonderful, and especially to just talk about the experiences that she's had overseas, and then how we can relate that back here. But I also wanted to play another video of how this relates into it. Now, we've heard about the 15-minute city, and especially to a lot of criticism, which we also got into. So we'll post the rest of that interview later. But this video will definitely kind of get into the gist of that concept and just kind of how transit relates into it. Let's take a look.
Seeing young couples with children, seeing young adults, seeing elderly people. It's something you really love to see at the neighborhood level. See the 15-minute city concept come alive, along with many services, shops, cafes, and so forth, all surrounding the square.
What is 15-minute city concept? It's a concept that appeared not so long time ago, and it was part of the campaign of Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris. We recently just published the new strategic master plan for Warsaw. The main idea of the new document is actually increasing quality of life of citizens. We did a lot of studies of accessibility of different services around the city. We did a study about urban fabric, how actually physical environment is influencing our life, quality of life. We should have like basic services close to the place we are living. Then we should have easy access to the services that we need periodically, like, I don't know, once per month. So if we're talking about the big-scale housing neighborhoods, one of the most characteristic one is Ursynów, that actually we can even say that it is 15 minutes city because all the facilities are in pedestrian access.
So let's go discover Ursynów together from the 15-minute city concept perspective. Here we are coming out of one of the metro stations, and there is an elevator here. This is so important from an accessibility perspective. Here we are also walking on the ramp. We just had a father with his son cycle by, people walking up and down. Great accessibility feature, thinking about mobility. Also in the 15-minute city concept, just thinking also about practical needs for individuals who need to get to the subway to commute.
The vision is actually to make the resilient ecosystem. So we see city as the whole ecosystem, where actually buildings are as important as blue and green infrastructure, so nature. What we are trying to achieve that is very important for the 15-minute city, it's the proximity of different services. Those services are those ones that are very close to our house, so they are local. They are one that we should access on the district level and the whole city level. And for each level, we should have access to the blue and green infrastructure and public transport. That is going to make a city as a whole, and pedestrian, and for cyclists, and even for car users.
A bike path that goes all the way from this district, Ursynów, to the city center. That's really great to see. Of course, prioritizing multiple modes of sustainable mobility. Here in Ursynów, we're seeing footpaths, quality pedestrian space for people moving by foot, prioritize bicycle, there's buses whizzing by, and a subway system. This is really wonderful. Here we are, an example of a really fantastic public space in the district of Ursynów. This is a local public space which is probably greatly used by local residents in this neighborhood. I'm seeing multiple generations here, young children enjoying this great water play, super important, especially in these hot days of summer.
The perfect vision would be that we were really forming a community. One big community and small communities all along neighborhoods that we are going to do it together. So it cannot be forced on people, so it should come from people, so we should design with them.
We've been here in Ursynów today investigating the area with the 15-minute city concept in mind. I'm really happy to say that we've seen the 15-minute city concept as a living, breathing reality in this area here today.
I do understand that some people can say, I don't want to live like that. I want to have my house with my garden, and I don't mind to drive a car. And that's okay. People are afraid that we are going to imprint one idea everywhere. It's about people, for people, yeah, and we do have to maybe change way of thinking, that maybe in the future I will have to share space.
The 15-minute city concept is not about restricting your freedoms. You're free to go where you like. It is about prioritizing a walkable, inclusive urbanism at neighborhood level. It's about quality of life.
Welcome back. So, like I said, we're going into our sustainability part, and we encourage a lot of groups to also think about this. Think about how we can electrify our vehicles. Think about how we can connect into a lot of our communities, and also think about how this is going to sustain itself from decades on, and not just for this year and next year. So, we're about to go into our next presentation, but first, I want to play an intro video for this organization based out of Portland. And you can see kind of how they also fit into this modal sustainability. Let's take a look.
So we'll watch this closely. It looks like we will see 3 days in a row of triple-digit temperatures by Tuesday, back in the mid-90s. So breaking daily record highs this weekend.
We're the Street Trust, and we're tired of normal. Because normal costs us time and money stuck in traffic. Normal means that the hot days keep getting hotter. Normal abandons the need of low-income communities and communities of color. And normal threatens the health and safety of everyone who uses our streets. Here at the Street Trust, we believe our future can be extraordinary. And when normal isn't working, we take to the streets and become the change we want to see. In our streets, we fight for equity and justice. We foster creativity and imagination. We champion prosperity and innovation. And we celebrate the magic that happens when we slow down and stop to smell the roses. In our streets.
اینجا خیابان‌های ما هست.
Estas son nuestras calles. And these are our streets. Normal doesn't make the cut. These are our streets, and we deserve way more than normal. Join the Street Trust in saying no to normal. And let's make our streets extraordinary together.
Really got me energized there. Joining us now is Maddie Carlson. Maddie is the Education and Engagement Director at the Street Trust in Portland, Oregon. The Street Trust advocates for multimodal transportation options that prioritize safety, accessibility, equity, and climate justice. Maddie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bakari. I'm so happy to be here celebrating Transit Equity Day. Everything we do at the Street Trust is about expanding transportation choices to reduce dependence on drive-alone trips and make our streets safer where motor vehicles interact with other street users. We envision a complete, safe, low-carbon, multimodal transportation system that contributes to equity in access, opportunity, health, and prosperity for people and communities around the Portland metro region and beyond. We advocate to break the political gridlock to address unsafe and incomplete public streets that threaten lives and livelihoods, and to win policy and investments that save lives, reduce barriers, and expand opportunities to the people and neighborhoods our current system neglects. Central to our mission is direct advocacy for public policy to help us achieve our vision. We offer the perspective of street users, our members, and our partners, informed by our own rigorous research and policy development. Here's a fun historical fact. The Street Trust was formed over 30 years ago in 1991 in front of a bus. When a Portlander wasn't allowed to bring his bike on a TriMet bus, a small group of advocates quickly formed and became a volunteer group. They named the Portland Area Bicycle Coalition, and a year later they launched a nonprofit they called the Bicycle Transportation Alliance. The BTA advocated for better bicycling infrastructure in Portland for many, many years. Then in 2017, we became the Street Trust and expanded our mission to embrace and center multimodality, and that's where we are today. Many of our most dedicated members are still with us because of our origin story and their love of bicycling for transportation. But we at the Street Trust recognize that bicyclists are pedestrians, are transit riders, and that all of us depend upon professional drivers, service trucks, and freight trains to one extent or another. We take a holistic, multimodal approach under the belief that our shared interests as street users are greater than our differences as people who prefer to roll or ride or drive. For 13 years, we've hosted the Oregon Active Transportation Summit, and we are currently planning this year's programming, so you should all come join us here in Portland, June 5th through 7th. Last year, our theme was Move into Action, with the goal to take big ideas from our transportation future and make them actionable. Our day one plenaries were all about transit, starting with the state of Oregon's transit systems, featuring transit general managers from around the state, urban, suburban, and rural. We welcomed Sam DeSue Jr., the general manager of TriMet here in Portland, Jameson T. Otten, the General Manager and Chief Executive Officer of Lane Transit District, and Andrea Bro, the Transportation Director of Cascades East Transit. In addition to learning about their varied challenges and successes, it was incredibly informative to see what they had in common despite the diverse sizes and geographies of their regions. The panel spoke about COVID ridership recovery, public safety on transit, the future innovations in mobility that they're excited about, and how their agencies think about and engage in the conversation about zero fare transit. And then after the GM spoke and answered audience questions, we had a great community panel that expanded on everything learned from the first panel. This group was moderated by Opal with panelists from TIAC, which is TriMet's Transit Equity Advisory Committee, nonprofit Better Eugene Springfield Transportation, the president of SEIU, the Service Employees International Union, Local 49, and a transit-dependent member of SEIU, Local 49. You can watch the conversations on our YouTube channel, which are being shared in the chat. And then for this year's Transit Equity Day, we started our celebration last Friday at Rosa Parks Elementary School, where TriMet General Manager Sam Dessou Jr. made the official announcement that TriMet would not collect fares on Sunday, February 4th, because we have reduced Sunday service, but we have quite a bit of service still, even on Sundays. So that was our fare-free day here in the Portland metro region. And that was made official at the Friday press event in honor of Rosa Parks, and the announcement was made in front of our 2024 Rosa Parks themed TriMet bus, which was unveiled there at the event. This is the 4th year that TriMet celebrated the civil rights icon's legacy in this way, and Rosa Parks Day is now an annual tradition for our entire region, and it's also celebrated with a fare-free day by neighboring transit agency C-Tran and by the Portland Streetcar. And TriMet thanked their board member, Keith Edwards, who first brought up the idea of free fares for Rosa Parks Day after having learned about the concept from community members. We at the street celebrated Transit Equity Day yesterday, and TriMet brought their demonstration bus bike rack to the parking lot outside our offices, and I hosted a miniature version of our How to Put Your Bike on the Bus clinic. Usually that's an hour-long experience with lots of hands-on practice and knowledge sharing, but for Rosa Parks' birthday, trying out the rack was just a little part of our party that also featured music and trivia and giveaways. In my role as the Education and Engagement Director at the Street Trust, I'm able to incorporate transit in many different ways for our various programs and events, and I thought I'd end by sharing a couple examples with you all today. We Bike is one of our programs. That's the Street Trust's program to inspire more trans people of all genders, gender nonconforming people, two-spirit, and women, both trans and cis, to incorporate a bike into their lives and use biking as a way to meet their transportation needs and personal goals. We Bike events are often beginner-friendly bike rides and multimodal bike share plus transit rides around the region and in the region, but there's been a lot of interest in getting away to nature the last few years. Portland has worldwide acclaim for both our biking culture and for our beautiful green spaces, but not every Portlander feels welcome and safe taking advantage of them, and We Bike is changing that. So when pairing biking 20 miles, and that's a relatively flat and slow and social 20 miles, with our Max Light Rail, it's possible, and I would dare say easy, to bring a group of 20 newbies to nature to experience their first bike camping trip. And that's what we did with We Bike 3 times in the last 2 years. We Bike events see a higher percentage of low-income and car-free, either by choice or by circumstance, participants than our general community events, so a multimodal trip like this might be the only way some of these folks get to go camping. I have to say there's something magical about getting all the way to a far-off campground via pedal power and transit, and everyone comes away feeling so confident and already thinking about how they can apply their newfound resilience to other aspects of their lives, whether it's a bigger bike adventure, or starting to use transit or biking for their everyday commutes and errand running. In addition to our beautiful green spaces, Portland also has lovely blue spaces. We celebrated one for 2022's 10th and final, The Big Float. It's a parade and a party on the Willamette River run by the nonprofit Human Access Project to inspire people to appreciate and protect our local river. A lot of people don't realize that you don't have to drive to events like this, so we led a Heat Island to River Relief parade. 2 parades, in fact. We led a guided bus ride parade and a guided bike ride parade from Portland's Lentz neighborhood, which experiences the highest and deadliest temperatures in the region every summer. So learning how to use air-conditioned buses to escape the heat for fun and for safety was a critical thing we did that year.
Absolutely. Y'all are teaching people how to camp and without a car. That is amazing. Well, we have the website below, www.thestreettrust.org. If you're in the Portland area, if you want to work with these folks or Opal, I've met with Opal before. It's also another wonderful, great group of people. Definitely get into it. Maddie Carlson from the Street Trust. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, we love groups like that. We also love all our green groups like Sierra Club, and we thank them so much for their support every year. Sierra Club's back now, and they introduced a topic to us last year for Transit Equity Day that they're now putting into practice this year. So let's play a clip of the video.
On this fall day outside New York City, the Sierra Club is leading a group of veterans on a hike on Bear Mountain. But getting there isn't easy for everyone.
I have to take one bus on First Avenue to 42nd Street and First Avenue, and then normally I wait 20 to 25 minutes to board the next bus, which is cross town from 42nd Street to Grand Central Station. Most of the time it takes me like an hour and a half.
An estimated 100 million Americans do not have an accessible park within a 10-minute walk of their homes. A lack of transportation, outdoor experience, or outdoor education and other barriers prevent many from experiencing the full benefits of time spent in nature.
Beautiful.
Joining us now is Rebecca Dean from Sierra Club, Pennsylvania. Rebecca is an organizer with the Sierra Club based in Philly, Pennsylvania. She works on the Outdoors for All campaign, which aims to reduce barriers to outdoor access in communities who have been excluded from safe, quality outdoor recreation. In Philly, Rebecca is a partner with Transit for Philadelphia, a coalition of Philly-based organizations advocating for safe, accessible, and sustainable public transit. Within the coalition, Rebecca focuses on Sierra Club's Transit to Trails campaign. Rebecca, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Bakari. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And this really touched my heart. When we were all stuck in the house for however long, one of my biggest escapes was being able to just take transit to go to trails. So I'm glad you all are doing this campaign.
Yeah, it's really a privilege to be able to do this campaign with Sierra Club, and we are sort of soft launching the campaign right now during Transit Equity Day, and I think we're going to really plan to ramp up over the spring and summer. And there are a number of organizers all over the country and a number of Sierra Club chapters that are planning on contributing to the campaign. And the campaign is really just about the title itself, Transit to Trails, right? Making sure that all Americans have access to safe, quality outdoor recreation without the need for a car. We believe at Sierra Club that everyone has a right to access the outdoors and that we have to do our part in fostering equity and resilience in communities so that they can continue to go outside. And part of that is transit justice and making sure that people have the autonomy to recreate either locally close to their home or further away and doing all kinds of activities. And ultimately we want them to be limited only in like what they're interested or not interested in doing. But we want transit to be a huge part of contribution to how people can go outside.
Absolutely. We have a comment. Kimberly Davis said this is a major concern in North Carolina, many of the rural neighborhoods that service. Yeah, I think that's really important is just kind of to highlight that. And especially, no matter where you are, and especially you could be around nature, but if you can't even leave out of your house, I think this is really important to service this. So I wanted to kind of go into, we heard earlier from Philadelphia about the lack of service in some parts of it, but there's also a lot of great park space. So could you just walk us through that?
I would be so happy to. Yeah, Philly is a really, really amazing city in terms of green space. We are lucky to have like one of the higher amounts of green space per capita and per person. And so we have so many parks that are within walking distance to communities. This is a map of Philly green spaces provided by philly.gov, as well as a SEPTA regional rail. So we are fortunate enough to have a public transit infrastructure in Philly. We have SEPTA, and we have 2 trains, and then we have a bus system as well. And those trains and buses, they can get you to green spaces, but you'll also note that the circles in red on the right-hand map show where there is lacking quality green space. So whereas Philly has some really beautiful, well cared for parks such as Fairmount Park, Wissahickon, John Hines, I could go on and on. There is a massive disparity in which parks are funded and which parks are accessible, and many Philadelphians do not have access to parks. And in fact, even in a lot of cases where technically maybe there is a bus stop or a train stop that is accessible to the park, a lot of those places, they're either not well kept, they are not safe, or they're really, really unreliable in terms of transit access. So you can sometimes need to take hours and hours just to get to a park that is a few miles from your house, and you have to have a lot of time. We know that people's time is their most valuable and most limited resource, right? Especially if you are a family with children. And oftentimes green spaces are not accessible to people, which is a shame because, like I said, we have so many in Philly, and we are lucky enough in comparison to many other cities in the United States that we do have that public transit infrastructure already set up. So it's really about a couple of things. It's about education as far as what parks are there and how to access them. And it's about improving our infrastructure here. We at Sierra Club, we try and do outings that are accessible by public transit and that educate the public on what those kind of transit routes are and where they exist. And then we also try and educate people on where those disparities, where those green spaces or public transit routes are lacking in certain communities, and which communities are really being excluded from our beautiful green spaces and the opportunity to recreate here in Philly.
Absolutely. Where can people find you if they want to continue more on this work?
So you can find me at the Sierra Club PA website. And you can also find me, I'm a coalition member of Transit Forward Philadelphia, which I would love to talk about just a little bit more. So that is a coalition of a bunch of local partners in Philly that are fighting for different advocacy issues related to public transit access. And so they believe in equity of public transit, that transit must be affordable for all. It must be accessible and serve everyone, especially those who rely on it. And that transit engagement and advocacy must involve all residents and must be structured to support neighborhoods and communities. They believe in access and very strongly that access provides autonomy, and that people have the right to have their own autonomy and be able to make their decisions that help them best serve their own life. And public transit is a massive part of that. And then they also believe in safety. Although we do have a SEPTA public transit infrastructure, like I mentioned, there are some real issues with safety and cleanliness that prevent a lot of people, especially, again, those with families and those that are differently abled, from being able to really utilize our public transit. And so Transit Forward Philadelphia and a bunch of its local partners are doing really, really amazing work to make sure that that happens. So you can find much more about those and their local partners on the Transit Forward Philadelphia website. And then you can always email me, rebecca.deegan@sierraclub.org, find out about local outdoor programming going on with Sierra Club in Philly that is public transit accessible. And of course, get involved with public transit equity.
Absolutely. Rebecca Deegan from Sierra Club, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful work for them. And of course, I think it's really key and essential that we bring a lot of this into play, and especially when we're talking about sustainability, because we want to be able to preserve a lot of our green spaces. But if we can't get people to them, then it's really sad as far as not being able to make that connection. Really quickly, I wanted to field a couple of these comments. Mark Schofer asked, can transit systems get federal funds from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act for capital investments to expand and electrify systems? There are actually some funds dedicated to electrifying a lot of the systems. A lot of it hasn't really gone towards the wayside for transit, but a lot of states have actually accepted a lot of these funds, and they just need to be divvied out. So that is important, and especially for a lot of these groups to rally for a lot of this to go towards transit. Then that does go into the whole point of flexing federal funds, if you've ever heard of that, where money is earmarked for highways, but they can be flexed for public transit. So that is one of my ideas. I wanted to plug the Disability in Transit event again. If you aren't privy to it, we're going to be inviting a lot of our members who have a disability to kind of share their what they've been dealing with this. So if you'd like to, we're going to put the link into the description to register for this webinar. But it's Disability in Transit, which will happen on Wednesday, February 7th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is a really long and overdue conversation, and we're thankful for all of the folks who has shared that, who has just been so vulnerable of sharing their stories to bring this on. So definitely register. We're definitely going to have a wonderful way to continue on with Transit Equity Week and bringing more events like this. And definitely go to our website if you want to see any more actions that are going on. There's definitely a lot of things still happening within the month of February. So definitely go to our website at laborforsustainability.org/transit equity 2024 if you'd like to know what other events are going on in your area. Well, right now we're going to go and play our next video. We also have a group that's also returning back to us, and they've overcome probably one of the biggest feats that I've seen so far. Now, a lot of folks have talked about fare-free transit and what can we do to make transit fare-free. And we're going to go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where a group has been advocating for just that. And while the stakes are high with the city government trying to take it away from them, they prevailed. Let's go to the video.
Basically, we want to accomplish better community environment and also make people feel safe, welcome in this bus stops, and also being able to get on the bus. And also we want to keep the zero fares going free and make it possible for all passengers, all people to get on it without any questions, and also make it safer for them as well.
Yeah, the zero fares has been incredible. I mean, it was, I think, like $1.25. I mean, it wasn't that expensive, but it could add up. I mean, if you're riding the bus, 5 days a week, that's $20 that maybe you wouldn't be able to have.
It helps me get around to my doctor's appointments and all, because I have stage 3 cancer.
It's made it so convenient that I don't have to worry about am I gonna be able to take the bus today, or am I gonna have to ask for a bus fare, or sometimes I don't have it, and it helps a lot.
When the zero bus fares came out, a lot of people didn't believe it, and after they started testing the waters, more and more people started using the public transportation system, and so it's been very helpful for people who weren't able to have a job during COVID, and now that they don't have to worry about paying for bus fare every single day back and forth to work and home, going to the grocery store, it's been a lot more accessible.
I think it gives people the opportunity to change their lives if they need to, being able to have a bike to get to work and get a job, maybe riding the bus, getting from place to place, and I think it's important for everybody to have access to it.
I rely heavily on the bus, so every doctor's appointment, prescriptions, Bible studies, going to work, pretty much everything.
Transportation equity means a lot because it's important. That's how our people get around to get to work, to get to school. I think it's important that we definitely support our families, our students, our people.
When I was a freshman in high school, basically in Highland, I used to take 2 buses and I had to get up early in the morning, so I was impacted by this bus system a lot. So I had to like pay for the buses to get around the town. So right now it's free for everybody to get around the town. It's like much better, and also like it helps everybody to be financially stable.
I don't have a car, so I use my bike to commute, and I do use the bus almost every day, I would say. So yeah, I use it a lot.
Well, I know equity means that people are able to get what they want and need. So I guess I would say that everyone who needs to get from their doctor's appointments or to the store is able to get that.
So I saw it firsthand how much we needed more investment in our youth and in our community so we can have access to different places we needed to go. I have a niece with special needs who needed the bus all the time, so just to see her do her programs and be happy and to go to the program she loves so much.
I think the equity comes when transit users are able to have that independence because they can rely on their transit system.
So people with special needs, they get to do different programming, and that's how she gets to all her programming. So it's good that she has that access now without worrying about how we're going to pay for, we all would chip in for her Sunvan tickets.
I would remind folks that zero fares creates opportunity for everyone in our city.
We as a community gotta change the culture of having violence based around how we take action for certain things. We were locked in our houses for 3 years and no interaction with anybody. And I think people forgot how to be kind and respectful. And as a community, that's not something that's impossible for us to change. It's just something that we need to work on and be consistent with.
Thank you so much for having this event and for helping, for doing this, putting it out there, you know?
Yes, that was Together for Brothers, a personal color group, definitely advocating for zero fares in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And those are some of the really wonderful stories showing how it's really benefited them to have that. This group has definitely been in a battle with the Albuquerque City Council on keeping those fares free. So, but I wanted to highlight one of the comments before we get into our next video. Ellen Barfield said Rosa Parks didn't just choose to stay seated. She'd been in organizing with the Highland Center to launch the effort. And yes, that's correct. And, you know, we definitely uplift a lot of these groups that are organizing because it takes more and definitely more voices to make things happen. And Albuquerque definitely did that. So their local PBS station definitely showcased a lot of these efforts. So let's play that video now.
A conversation about transportation here in Albuquerque. Everyone has an opinion about city buses, even people who don't ride them. And in recent years, they've drawn the attention of our city council, which launched a zero fares pilot program. Now, local officials have gone back and forth over that program. As you know, we've talked about it here, leaving it as an experiment for now and adding more guards with more power on city buses as a compromise to continue exploring those free rides. Our Land's Laura Pasca sits down with 2 advocates for Albuquerque's bus system and for free transit for everyone in the city. Christopher Ramirez and Althea Atherton are with Togethers for Brothers, and yes, both rode city buses to our studios here at New Mexico PBS.
Christopher, Althea, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for inviting us.
So I wanted to start just talking about buses in Albuquerque. Who rides them? Why are they important?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I think is great is, and I think you know this, Together for Brothers has been doing community-based research around transportation since 2017. We were funded by the Kellogg Foundation and New Mexico Health Equity Partnership to really look into youth and transportation, and we've learned a lot about bus riders. What's also great is every 5 years, Albuquerque is required by the Federal Transportation Administration, FTA, to do an onboard survey with bus riders so that we learn about them and also that we can verify that we are not engaging in any civil rights violations. So February and March of 2022, as Zero Fares was launching, we have this incredible data tool of the onboard survey that says some important things about bus riders in Albuquerque. One thing, 80% of bus riders identified on average as having a household income less than $25,000. So that's basically living in poverty, right? So a lot of our bus riders are economically in that one of the lowest categories in terms of household income. The other thing we want to also share is we learned in that onboard survey, 60% of bus riders do not have a driver's license or identification. And that's important, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, that one of the proposed changes to Zero Fares was a pass, which wouldn't have been Zero Fares, but we literally have 60% of bus riders who don't have an ID to prove that they're a senior, to prove that they're their age, to prove that they're who they say they are. Mm-hmm. And so that's important too. And we know that especially impacts people experiencing homelessness who find it hard to have and keep an ID that's valid.
It's a wider range of people than I think people give credit for. I think people like me who have like a medical reason to not want to drive, or even some of my friends who just have anxiety about the road conditions here, pedestrian fatality rates, things like that, end up deciding that the bus is, even if they're only sometimes using it, a better way to go. And I see a lot of students at C&M, UNM, around the public schools using it. So, and also a lot of seniors who maybe just like don't want to have to deal with driving anymore, whether they can or they, have decided not to for medical reasons as well. It ends up being a pretty, diverse group of people on my daily rides.
So, Zero Fares. Can you talk about how that program benefits anybody in Albuquerque, but in particular, young men of color and their families?
Absolutely. I'm going to take us back all the way to 2018. We finished doing a year of community-based research, our health impact assessment, and this is what it told us. If young people had access to free transit, it would impact their access to education. And I think you might remember there was a story, we met a young person who was a freshman at Highland High School, 100 tardies, and he was on the verge of being suspended from Highland. No one at Highland had ever asked him, what's making you tardy, right? And it was because he had to get 2 buses to go to a school of choice and be in the refugee cohort at Highland, right? Access to education, access to employment. Would it be easier to find and keep a job if you had free transit? 97% of boys and young men of color told us absolutely yes, right? Access to recreation. Would you be able to get to quality parks and outdoor space? Absolutely, right, in the 90s again. And then the other thing that was a surprise, because as we were doing surveys, interviews, focus groups, we learned something. We thought about this healthy, like getting to exercise, but the other thing that a lot of young people, which is probably no surprise to you because of the news stories you've done about food security, in the International District in Westgate, the most impacted transit-dependent households, access to healthy food was another important factor, right? So free transit would do that. We learned that in 2018, we pushed for free student passes, and then something great happened in 2019. We were introduced to this new National Day of Action on Rosa Parks' birthday on February 4th. We used that as an opportunity to do something, to make a call for free transit for everyone. We passed our first resolution with the Transit Advisory Board in 2019. City Council actually voted in support of free transit, but we missed a really important element. They didn't add anything to the budget. So in 2021, something magical happened because we did it in 2020 again. And in 2021, then Councilor Lancena found the $3 million for the pilot program for Zero Fares. So that's why we're at where we're at, right?
I can imagine how important buses are for people to access different services and different places all across the city. And so for the Zero Fares program, how do you think that it has affected people's ability to, get to do things outside in addition to reaching your job or your school?
Yeah, I think it's definitely helped a great amount because I know I was on the art bus a few months ago and talking to someone, and she said she takes the bus to the Bosque every sunset, and that's like her thing is every sunset she likes to catch the sunset there. And we were talking about Zero Fares and how that makes that an affordable decision for her, an affordable way to get to a beautiful place to watch the sunset every day. And I think about one of the health clinics where I access medical care, the Alamosa Community Center, that's a great accessible by bus location. So even though it's pretty far from my house, I actually choose to go to that one because I know I can get there pretty reliably by the bus. So it just kind of opens up doors for so many people. And even if people could afford the service before, the service is better now that it's zero fare, because you don't have to wait for everybody counting their nickels, counting, making sure they have the fare. You don't have to witness the fare conflicts between the drivers and riders. It's just everybody gets on the bus and goes. And it's made me want to take the bus more, as someone who, could walk some places and take the bus some places. I'm like, oh no, it'll be so fast to get on the bus, and there'll be fewer conflicts in general than how it used to be.
I can imagine that, because even though obviously I would be able to pay the fare, but I know as a rider in a new city or someplace, I get flustered, do I need to have an ID, do I need a punch card, do I need exact change? So I can see how the zero fares would have impacts beyond.
Honestly, even just not taking out my purse and digging through to find my ID anymore, because I had free fares before as a C&M student, even just not having to dig out for my purse, and just reduces stress, so I'm way less flustered when I'm on the bus. I just have to worry about my mask.
And can I add that one of the things that we're seeing with zero fares too is I love hearing from some of our community partners, because we've heard from other service providers like Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless. They saw a significant decrease in no-shows or late shows for people that are getting services, because previously, to get to their service, you had to have a bus pass. It was one of the biggest barriers for people experiencing homelessness to access healthcare. We also heard from Transgender Resource Center that clients that go to the Resource Center didn't have as many conflicts with drivers, right, about their IDs or not having fares or being harassed. And so I think those are really positive outcomes too of zero fares. You get on and go. It's that easy, right?
And so lastly, what is the status of the zero fares program, and what do you anticipate might happen in the next weeks, months?
Yeah, so right now we have our zero fare pilot that's still going on, and then they just extended time for a study to September to see how things are going with the fixed routes. And in addition, there's a new bill that was just proposed to the City Council, but they have to do an equity study on it first, that would make the ART bus and paratransit, the Sun Van, free for everybody permanently, which would be a fantastic program that I think would be just one of the best things we can do. Of course, I want it to be the fixed route services too, but it's a great place to start.
And again, what we're excited for is that implementation plans really call for community input and for community-led solutions to transit security that don't rely just on law enforcement. Other communities are looking to Albuquerque. We recently attended a national convening in DC. This is where people are moving towards. I think you might have heard DC just beat us out as the largest city with free buses in the country, right? There are about 100,000 people more than Albuquerque. And we're happy to let them take that moniker as being the largest city with free buses. But we're excited that people are looking to Albuquerque as an example of what the future looks like for public transit.
Awesome. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Hi, and I'm also happy to report that after nearly a 2-year-long pilot program, numerous data reports and feedback from community members, ABQ Ride, the transit agency in Albuquerque, will permanently remain fare-free. On Wednesday, November 8th, 2023, City Council approved O-23-89, officially making zero fares permanent for all services provided by ABQ Ride. This comes after the council previously voted to eliminate fares for the city's ART line and the Sun Van paratransit service in April 2023. So that is an absolute immense blessing for those folks. And if you'd like to follow along with their organization and the Albuquerque Transit Riders Union, please go to togetherforbrothers.org, members of the Transit Equity Network for years, and we definitely thank them for a lot of the service. We are for this year. They also sent in a statement honoring transit. 1 second, let me get that in. Excuse me, my computer's running really slow. But before we read that statement, we actually have Christopher joining us right now to talk about a little bit of what we just went through in the video. So we'll bring him up now while my computer loads. Yeah, I wanted to also ask him to just his feet up something that's really big. As in the video that Christopher mentioned, that a lot of cities are definitely looking to Oh, so sorry for the technical difficulties. We're now going to bring Christopher up to talk about the triumphant win in Albuquerque. Christopher, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Bakari. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. How are you?
Great. Good. I'm so sorry. We just got back from our Transit Equity Day at the state capitol in Santa Fe. I'm here at the Alvarado Transit Center in downtown Albuquerque, where we did our Transit Equity Day on Saturday with hundreds of people joining us. But thank you so much for having us, and thank you so much for sharing the video. And I heard you sharing about our zero fares success, including permanently funding free transit here in Albuquerque.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How does it feel now to actually have that in law?
You know what's incredible? We've been to Santa Fe today to talk about the fact that not only do we have zero fares in Albuquerque, but 4 of our communities, Las Cruces, Los Alamos, and Taos, New Mexico, which I think is right, puts New Mexico on the forefront of having the most communities zero zero fares in our, and what we're moving towards is having that for the whole state. It feels great. In the first year of zero fares, 6 million bus riders took advantage of our free public transit. And today we took about 25 community members up to the state capitol, and for them to share their stories about what zero fares allows us to do, get to school, get to work, get to outdoor spaces and parks, but also get to healthy food and access groceries. Transit helps health outcomes and health equity for our most impacted communities. And we're excited to see that happen for the rest of the state. It feels great knowing we've seen something in language to talk about transit equity. One last thing, Bakari, on Saturday, our mayor declared Transit Equity Day for the 6th year in a row in Albuquerque. We had city councilors come out to our Transit Equity Day event, and I have realized talking about transit equity as a community, and that feels great because we are, talking about not just free fares, but safe buses and bus stops, clean transit, including pushing electric van buses. Let's putting in our.
Yeah, well, we definitely thank you for a lot of your service, and we definitely plug the website. Christopher Ramirez, thank you so much for joining us. I want to go to the statement again. ATU sent a statement out honoring Transit Equity Day saying, this Transit Equity Day, the ATU honors Rosa Parks by demanding equitable and robust public transit. And also, quote, Transit Equity Day is a day for us to come together to remember a pivotal moment in civil rights history when Parks defied an unjust law by refusing to give up her seat on a Montgomery, Alabama bus to a white man. This year, let's invest in public transit to create a more just, clean, and accessible future for all. For Rosa and all of us who came before us, happy Transit Equity Day. That's a statement from ATU International President John Costa. Before we go, I'd like to leave you with this message. First off, I'd like to thank everyone that presented today on our live stream. The bravery represents the energy we need for a coalition of labor and organizers to fight for transit equity as a civil right. I'd also like to thank our wonderful back office team, without whom none of this would be possible, for our third year of Transit Equity Day Live. We'd also like to thank our legislatures for fighting to put more action and accountability for our government, from local to federal, for our transit systems. I'd also like to thank you all for watching and definitely braving through a lot of our technical difficulties. No matter how large or how small the conversation, we're greater than ever when we band together. We thank you for tuning in today, and we encourage you to continue this conversation online using the hashtag Transit Equity Day. Also, please visit our website at www.laborforcesustainability.org/transit-equity-2024 to learn more about all the great actions still going on throughout the rest of the month around this country and how you can join on them. Please also make sure that you like this video, comment, and share it amongst your friends and in your networks, and subscribe to our YouTube channels for Labor Network for Sustainability and the Transit Equity Network. We also invite you again to our first ever Disability in Transit panel this Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Wednesday, February 7th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The links for all of these will be in the chat and as well on the Labor Network for Sustainability website. Thank you all for tuning in this year for another captivating Transit Equity Live. From all of us at the Labor Network for Sustainability and the Transit Equity Network, my name is Bakari Height. Have a wonderful Transit Equity Day.